The first thing I remember is the sound of laughter, bright, careless, echoing through the kitchen like broken glass, right before my lungs forgot how to work. It wasn't fear at first. It was confusion. The kind that makes you blink twice and wonder why the air suddenly feels thick, like honey poured down your throat. I remember thinking, this isn't funny, and then realizing the laughter belonged to my sister. Miriam had always laughed loud. It was part of her charm, people said. The life of every room. The woman who could turn even grief into a punchline. Growing up, she was the sun and I was the moon. Present, necessary, but never noticed unless she stepped aside. Even now, at 32, freshly divorced, underpaid, and living back in our childhood home, I was still orbiting her. That afternoon, the kitchen smelled of turmeric and onions. My mother had left halfway through cooking, called away by a neighbor's emergency. Miriam and I were alone, the radio humming softly in the background. I had just come back from a job interview that felt promising for once, an admin position at a private clinic. My chest was still tight with hope, a fragile thing I hadn't felt in years. "Relax," Miriam said, leaning against the counter, scrolling on her phone. "You always act like the world is about to end." I smiled weakly and reached for the glass she handed me. "Drink," she said. "You look pale." The water tasted off, metallic, bitter, like a crushed aspirin multiplied by 10. I frowned. "What is this?" He grinned. "It's just a joke." That word. The burn started seconds later. Not heat, pressure. My throat began to close, slowly, deliberately, as if my body had decided I no longer deserved oxygen. I dropped the glass. It shattered, water spreading across the floor like spilled truth. "Miriam," I croaked, clutching my chest. "I can't." Her smile faltered. "Just a flicker. Stop being dramatic." I staggered backward, my vision tunneling. Had asthma. Severe. She knew that. Everyone in the family knew that. My inhaler was upstairs. Too far. My legs gave out, and I hit the floor hard, tiles cold against my cheek. The laughter was gone now, replaced by panic. But it came too late. My heart slammed against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Each breath was a war I was losing. I remember her kneeling beside me, her voice suddenly sharp. "Layla, stop. You're scaring me." "Scaring you?" I wanted to laugh. Or scream. Or both. Darkness crept in at the edges of my vision, thick and merciless. Somewhere far away, I heard myself wheezing, a horrible animal sound. The last thing I saw before everything went black was Miriam's face, pale. Her phone clutched in her hand as if she couldn't decide whether to call for help or film the moment. When I woke up, the ceiling was white. Too white. Hospital white. Tubes snaked from my arms, machines beeped softly, indifferent to the chaos they had pulled me back from. My throat felt raw, like it had been scraped with sandpaper. A nurse noticed my eyes flutter open and smiled gently. "You're lucky," she said. "Another few minutes, and..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Later, a doctor explained it in careful words. The water had been mixed with something. Cleaning chemical. "A small amount," he said. "But with your condition..." He trailed off, the implication heavy in the air. An accident, they would call it. Mistake. Joke gone wrong. Miriam cried when she came to see me. Loud, dramatic sobs that drew attention from the nurses. She held my hand and said sorry over and over, her words tumbling out like coins meant to buy forgiveness. "I didn't think," she said. "I swear. I just wanted to scare you a little." Scare me. Our parents believed her instantly. They always had. She didn't mean it. "She's your sister. Family forgives." He nodded, smiled. I played the part of the grateful survivor. But inside, something cold and precise was forming. Because while everyone else saw a joke, I had felt my body shutting down. I had tasted death in the back of my throat. And when the nurse handed me a clear plastic bag containing my clothes, still damp, still smelling faintly of chemicals, I noticed something no one else did. The label on the bottle, still stuck to the fabric of my sleeve. And in that moment, lying in a hospital bed I almost never left, I made a quiet decision. If Miriam thought this was a joke, then I would treat it like a procedure. And every procedure comes with a bill. Mini cliffhanger. As I stared at that label, I realized I had more than survival. I had proof. And for the first time, I wasn't going to let it disappear. They discharged me 3 days later, my body weak but my mind painfully sharp. Home didn't feel like home anymore. Every room held echoes of laughter that now sounded cruel. Every surface a reminder of how easily I could have died there. Miriam avoided my eyes, overcompensating with forced kindness, making tea, fluffing pillows, telling anyone who would listen how scared she had been. Let her. People often mistake silence for forgiveness. I used that mistake like a weapon. The first thing I did was lock my bedroom door and spread everything out on the bed. The clothes from the hospital bag, my cracked phone, screenshots of texts Miriam had sent friends joking about, almost killing Layla grinning face with sweat, and the small, partially dissolved label from the cleaning chemical bottle. I photographed everything. Multiple angles. Good lighting. Close-ups. I backed it up on a cloud drive, emailed copies to myself, and stored a USB in the lining of my purse. Preservation the way a forensic tech might do it. Methodical. At night, when my lungs still burned and sleep refused to come, doubt tried to creep in. Am I overreacting? She didn't mean it. She's family. But then my chest would tighten, phantom pain reminding me how close I'd come to never asking those questions again. The clinic called me a week later. Got the job. Walking into that building for the first time felt surreal. White walls, the smell of antiseptic, the quiet efficiency of people who saved lives for a living. I learned quickly how to file insurance claims, how to code procedures, how bills were calculated down to the smallest detail. The irony wasn't lost on me. One afternoon, while reviewing an invoice for emergency intubation, my hands began to shake. I knew exactly what I was doing now. At home, the tension thickened. Miriam's guilt began to rot into irritation. She snapped at me for using her mug, rolled her eyes when I used my inhaler. Once during dinner she laughed and said, "You're milking this a bit, don't you think? You're alive." Live. The word hit me harder than any insult. That night, I opened a spreadsheet and began calculating. Ambulance ride. Emergency room treatment. Oxygen. Medication. ICU observation. Follow-up appointments. Lost wages from missed work. Emotional distress. Harder to quantify but not impossible. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't inflate numbers. I used real hospital rates, insurance statements, market standards. I treated my almost death like what it was. A medical emergency caused by negligence. Caused by her. Weeks passed. Miriam's wedding planning consumed the house. Invitations, fabrics, endless phone calls. She was glowing, surrounded by congratulations, while I moved quietly through the background, the nearly dead sister no one wanted to mention anymore. One evening, I overheard her on the phone. "She's still acting weird," Miriam said, laughing softly. I said sorry 100 times. What else does she want? A medal? I stood in the hallway, the walls pressing in. My hands were cold, but my resolve was steady. The next morning I printed the invoice. It was 12 pages long. I slipped it into a plain envelope, neat and professional. On the front, I wrote her name in careful handwriting. Not angry. Not emotional. Just precise. I waited until dinner, until our parents were seated, until Miriam was mid-story, basking in attention. I placed the envelope beside her plate. "What's this?" she asked, annoyed at the interruption. "Your bill," I said calmly. Silence fell like a dropped glass. She laughed at first, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "Very funny." "Open it," I said. Our parents watched, confused. Miriam's smile faded as she flipped through the pages. Her face changed color, pink to white to something darker. "What is this?" she hissed. "The cost of the emergency you caused," I replied. "Itemized. Documented. Accurate. You can't be serious." "I nearly died," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. This is what it costs to almost kill someone. My mother gasped. My father's face hardened. Miriam stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You're insane," she said. "It was a joke." I met her eyes. Jokes don't come with ICU charges. The room erupted, shouting, disbelief, accusations of betrayal. But beneath the noise, something else surfaced. Fear. Because for the first time, Miriam realized I wasn't playing along. And I wasn't done yet. Paper rips loudly. It's an ugly sound, full of finality. Miriam let the torn pieces fall like confetti, her hands shaking with rage. "There," she said. "Problem solved." I didn't move. Instead, I pulled out my phone and placed it gently on the table. Then the USB drive. Then another envelope, this one thicker. "You should know," I said quietly. "I kept copies." The room stilled. I slid the second envelope toward my father. Photos, screenshots, the chemical label, doctor's notes, timestamps, messages you sent joking about it. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Miriam stared at the envelope like it might explode. "You wouldn't," she said, her voice suddenly unsure. "I already did," I replied. "A lawyer has copies. So does my clinic's legal department." That wasn't entirely true, but it didn't need to be. The possibility was enough. "You're threatening me," she demanded. "No," I said. "I'm billing you." I stood up then, my legs trembling but holding. For years I had swallowed things to keep the peace. Insults, neglect, the quiet understanding that Miriam would always matter more. But standing there, breathing carefully, I realized something had shifted. I wasn't asking for justice. I was taking responsibility for my own survival. "If you don't pay," I continued, "I file a report. Negligence. Endangerment. Maybe worse. I don't want revenge. I want accountability." My father looked at Miriam, disappointment etched deep into his face. "Is this true?" he asked. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For once there was no joke ready. No charm to smooth things over. Days passed in a strange limbo. Whispers. Closed doors. Miriam didn't speak to me. Our parents walked on eggshells. And then one afternoon my phone buzzed. A bank notification. The full amount. No message. No apology. Just the money. I sat on my bed and stared at the screen, tears blurring the numbers. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about being believed by myself. Miriam moved out a week later. The house felt lighter, quieter. My breathing improved, both physically and emotionally. I took on more responsibility at work, found confidence in my competence. The clinic promoted me within months. Sometimes late at night I still think about how close I came to disappearing. How easily it could have been brushed aside as a tragic accident. But I'm here. And I learned something vital in the aftermath of almost dying from someone else's carelessness. Survival isn't just staying alive. It's deciding that your life has a cost, and refusing to let anyone treat it like a joke.